She's solving mysteries in the night. She's the shadows finding answers, shining bright light. No one's left behind in the darkness all alone. With a heart like a siren, she brings the lost ones home. Silent cries in the dark no longer have to be. For justice wheels keep turning, Granny on the beat. Broken voices find their power, call out hope again. When Granny's crime busters run, no victims left in vain. Bravery in her veins, truth she won't disguise. With a fire in her eyes, she's got nothing to deny. Granny fights for justice, never backs down from the call. For the voiceless and the missing, she'll stand tall.
Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. I wanted to go over some highlights of day one of the Lori Vallow Daybell trial, where she's accused of being a co-conspirator in attempting to take the life of her nephew, Brandon Boudreaux. As I watched this all day yesterday and again finished it after our live last night, my heart broke for Brandon, watching him up on the stand. I have always felt badly for Brandon, and not just Brandon, but, Kay and the rest of the people that are involved in this case, and Colby, number one. But Brandon, I just felt horrible for it because his wife got caught up. His wife Melanie, who is Lori Vallow's niece, got caught up in Lori and Chad's delusions and said all kinds of horrible things against her husband. Brandon, by all accounts, of course he's not perfect, right? But he's a good husband, a good father, provided well for his family. They were living in $1 million home, guys. So, he was a good provider. They had 4 children together. He did not want to get divorced, right? He did not want to get divorced because he didn't want, he loved Melanie. He didn't want to see his children's lives affected forever by a divorce, because we all know that happens, right? So he lost so much, and you can see it. You can see it on the stand. The thing that didn't happen yesterday was Lori is waiting for some kind of file from her private investigator before she cross-examines Brandon. So we got to see the state's, the state's testimony for Brandon, but Brandon will be called back for cross-examination by Lori once she receives that file, which is very interesting. Keep in mind that over the past week or so, Lori has succeeded in delaying the trial by a few days because she claimed that she was ill. Whether she's ill or not, I don't know. But the judge finally said, no, we're going to go through, and they finished pulling the jury, and they started. So not only was Brandon on the stand yesterday, but there were 4 others that were on the stand as well, and they were basically investigators, that kind of thing, talking about the bullet hole in Brandon's car, the trajectory, all of that fun stuff that you just love listening to, right? So I'm not going to show that part. Today I thought we'd go over opening statements and then Brandon's testimony. So I thought to start out with, we would listen to Colby's reaction to opening statements. For those of you who may not know, Colby is Lori Vallow Daybell's oldest son. And his siblings' lives were taken by Lori and Chad and his uncle Alex. So he also looked at Charles Vallow as a father that he never really had. So he lost a lot as well. Not only that, he lost his mother because he does not condone what his mother did in any way, shape, or form. He knows that his mother's delusional, that the faith that she believes to have and try to spread is delusional. You know, it's not the LDS faith. It's not what LDS stands for. Guys, I'm not LDS, but I know enough about it and I've heard enough about it to know that what Lori and Chad believe is not what the LDS faith teaches. So anyway, I thought we would listen to Colby. He has his own channel. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to put the video or the link for the video, because we're not going to listen to his whole testimony. We're going to go to a different channel for Brandon's testimony. But I wanted to give you guys an idea of what Colby is going through. And I encourage you, sub up to Cody if you haven't already. You know, he walks through the pain, the heartache that he's gone through because of his mother, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead, share a screen. This is the one. And we've got Cody down here. All right, here we go. So we're going to listen to opening arguments with Colby Ryan.
Jeep Wrangler. The Texas license plate, no rear tire, and dark tint.
What is that?
Parked
Cone?
right up next to Brandon Boudreaux's driveway. Title. At 9:13 a.m. on October 2nd of 2019, Brandon Boudreaux returned home. That Jeep had been idling there already for over an hour. When Brandon turned onto his street, he immediately noticed this Jeep because it was parked so close to his driveway. The back of the Jeep was facing towards him, and he immediately also noticed that there was no rear tire. He saw a Texas plate on the Jeep, and then he saw that back window of the Jeep open up, a rifle barrel come out and point at him, and then bang! He heard a shot and his window shattered right next to him. Brandon hit the accelerator and he took off. He turned the corner and drove a block or so away and stopped, calling 911. He talked to the operator and told them where this Jeep was going. As Brandon was speaking with the 911 operator, he had no idea that that bullet had struck his car just a few inches from his head. You'll learn that in the back of that Jeep was this defendant's brother, Alex Cox. He had been lying in wait with a rifle for Brandon to return home. This defendant, Lori Vallow Daybell, the woman seated over here, had loaned her Jeep to her brother so he could drive it to Arizona. So he could be in the back of that Jeep with very dark tint that no one could see through and wait for Brandon to return home. The goal of this defendant and her co-conspirators, to shoot and kill Brandon Boudreaux. So let's talk about October 2nd and the weeks leading up to that. All of the actions that this defendant did in furtherance of that conspiracy and the premeditated murder of Brandon Boudreaux.
My gosh, bro.
I'm going to start with a little background for you. In June of 2019, Brandon Boudreaux was still married to his then wife, Melanie. You're going to learn that Melanie is this defendant's niece. You're going to learn they were very close. And you're going to learn that they both had it out for Brandon. On June 25th, Brandon and Melanie got into an argument. And Brandon learned that this defendant had told his wife that he was gay, that he had hacked into her computer, and that Brandon was trying to work with her then husband to take her temple recommend away. We're going to learn that many of the people, including Brandon and this defendant, are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And having your temple recommend taken away is a very significant event. You're going to learn and see that Brandon actually texted Lori Vallow on the 25th of June to confront her about these lies, and that she never responded. By July, just a short while later, Brandon and Melanie were seeing a mediator and proceeding through a divorce. You're going to also hear that during this time, Lori Vallow and Alex Cox lived here in Arizona.
I'll go like that. That way we're separate. That's plenty. We were not.
You're going to hear about an incident that occurred on July 11th of 2019 in Chandler involving Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. The Chandler police were out at this defendant's residence and they took photographs of some vehicles. One of those vehicles was a 2018 Jeep Wrangler with Texas license plates, LWD 0997. That will be very important to you. They also noted that Alex had his own car, a Ford F-150. Both of those vehicles were in Chandler in July. You're going to learn that in August or September, or August through September, Lori Vallow and her brother Alex Cox moved up to Rexburg, Idaho, to be closer to this defendant's soon-to-be husband, Chad Daybell. Both of them moved into a complex at 565 Pioneer Road in Rexburg, Idaho. Lori took the Jeep Wrangler and a Nissan Rogue, and Alex brought his Ford F-150. So everyone had their own vehicles. You're going to learn that as the divorce is proceeding between Brandon and his then wife, Melanie, that they put their house up for sale. And Melanie moved out and got a rental property. When their house finally sold, Brandon had to rent a home too. And on September 13th of 2019, he rented a house at 3875 East Phelps Street in Gilbert. Brandon will tell you that his plan initially was to stay in his own house almost up to the time of the closing and then move into the rental property. You will see a text message that Melanie asked Brandon for his new address. They had children in common, so he didn't think anything of this. And he sent her the address. That was on September 17th. You'll learn that Melanie Boudreaux, this defendant's niece, was the only person who knew Brandon's address, who knew 3875 East Phelps Street, and who also knew this defendant and Alex Cox. Brandon barely moved into that house before the shooting. In fact, he'd moved in sooner than he thought because Melanie told him she was going out of town and offered him the kids for an extra weekend. And so he moved in sooner and took the kids while she flew to Rexburg, Idaho on September 26th through the 29th to be with this defendant. So in the weeks leading up to this October 2nd shooting, we'll talk about all of these things that were done in furtherance of this conspiracy, starting with Lori Vallow's Jeep.
We'll talk about that later. Elephant in the room.
You'll learn that Alex Cox searched out a place to have extra window tinting put on the Jeep. And I say that because you're going to see the photos from the Jeep in July, and you'll see there's tinting on the windows, but you can still see into it.
Thank you, Paula.
And so on September 25th, Alex Cox took that Jeep to Dan's Window Tinting in Rexburg, Idaho, and he paid $200 to put some of the darkest tint you could put on it. You'll see those photos of what that Jeep looked like afterwards. This is the first action of this defendant, Lori Vallow, in the conspiracy, loaning her brother this Jeep and allowing him to put on these dark tint to get it ready so he can lie in wait and no one could see him in the back with that rifle. It is her first mistake, using that Jeep and tying herself to the conspiracy and to the premeditation. Also on September 25th, you're going to learn that Lori Vallow and her accomplice, Alex Cox, went to the Walmart superstore in Idaho Falls. You're going to learn that's not far from Rexburg. And they purchased a burner phone. Now, a burner phone is a phone that you don't have to put your subscriber information to. And so how do we know that Alex Cox was there and Lori Vallow was there? Well, you're going to learn they each had their own cell phone like most of us do. And that Alex Cox's cell phone was utilizing Wi-Fi inside that Walmart at the time that burner phone was purchased with cash.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And you'll learn that this defendant's cell phone that was subscribed to her was utilizing cell towers in the area of that Walmart at the time that that burner phone was purchased. Lori Vallow and Alex Cox knew that he would need a phone when he drove down here, but they knew you don't want to bring your own phone. It's a great, you'll be tracked, right? So they bought this burner phone so that Alex would have contact while he drove down here and away. But Alex made a mistake. Because like any other phone, you can still use a burner phone to access Google or your Gmail accounts. And you're going to learn that Alex accessed his Gmail account. In this investigation, you'll learn the police executed many, many search warrants, and one of them was on Alex Cox's Gmail account, homerjmaximus@gmail.com. You're going to learn that Alex searched for things like window tinting in Rexburg, that he searched for places to practice shooting ranges. You're going to learn that he searched different things about angles or trajectories of shots.
Oh my gosh, you Google it, you dumbass.
The day before on October 1st,
He didn't know what he was doing.
October 2nd,
What
he
an
searched
absolute moron.
3875 East Phelps Street, where Brandon Boudreaux lived. You're going to learn that after the shooting, Alex Cox actually searched for directions on how to get away through a back road. He knew he hadn't killed Brandon. Brandon's calling 911, and so he searched for Pine Top.
So I just want to say, guys, remember that Colby is not privy to everything that happened in his mom's case. This is the third trial, by the way, guys. So he's not privy to a lot of this information. So you're seeing him react as he's hearing it for the first time, you know. And, you know, yes, Alex was his uncle, but he also knows what Alex did. So, seriously, my heart goes out to this young man. And honestly, if you have not subscribed to him, I encourage you to do that.
Holbrook, Moab, Utah, Fillmore, Utah, and eventually Idaho Falls as he made his way back through back roads. You're going to learn that the police also executed search warrants on this defendant's Gmail account.
Appreciate you. Love you too.
LoriTimeForever@gmail.com. On September 30th, the day when her brother took her Jeep and started driving down to Arizona, she searched, quote, how to get the back seat out of my Jeep Wrangler.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she also searched a YouTube video, Jeep Wrangler JK rear seat removal, how to DIY YouTube video.
Oh my
This
gosh.
defendant continued to be a co-conspirator and to aid her accomplice, Alex Cox, by searching how to remove that back seat of the Jeep so he could better lie in wait to shoot Brandon. This was the defendant's second mistake, and more evidence of her being a co-conspirator and the premeditation. This defendant also, on September 30th, began aiding Alex by becoming his alibi. You'll hear from Nick Valance, who is an FBI agent who deals with cellular analysis, that around 4:30 p.m. on September 30th, Alex Cox's cell phone, the one that he subscribed to, moved from his apartment in this same complex where he and Lori Vallow lived to Lori Vallow's unit. And from then on for the next couple days, Alex Cox's phone remained with this defendant. Meanwhile, that burner phone from that
100%.
Idaho Falls Walmart on September 30th started moving towards Arizona. You will hear that on October 2nd of 2019, at about 8 in the morning Arizona time, about an hour before the shooting, this defendant created the alibi. She had Alex Cox's phone call her phone to make it look like he was still in Rexburg, Idaho, instead of in Gilbert, Arizona. That fake call lasted about 24 minutes. Both of those cell phones were using the same cell tower in Rexburg, Idaho.
You're so stupid.
This was Lori Vallow's third mistake.
They're
More
such
evidence
idiots.
that she was a co-conspirator and of that premeditation to aid her brother in this
Yes.
shooting of Brandon Boudreaux. So how do we know, though, that Lori Vallow's Jeep drove from Idaho to Arizona?
Dumber, and dumbest.
Well, we're going to start by learning about what we call LPRs, or license plate readers. You will learn and see a photo of Lori Vallow's Jeep in Arizona on October 1st of 2019, up near Holbrook on the I-40. You'll hear that the DEA has a license plate reader there, and they took a photo of Lori Vallow's Jeep with that license plate LWD 0997 on its way to Gilbert, Arizona. You're also going to learn that the police later recovered that Jeep back up in Rexburg, and they did a couple different search warrants on it. And what they recovered inside the Jeep, among other things, was a receipt from October 1st of 2019 from Mesa, Arizona, the day before the shooting, from a restaurant called Los Favoritos out on Power Road. You're going to learn that at the time the burner phone is down here in Arizona. You'll learn that Alex Cox was using his Gmail and Googling an address on Power Road around the time when we then see the receipt. Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's Jeep, and Alex's rival are here in Arizona waiting to commit this shooting. Meanwhile, up in Rexburg, on October 1st, this defendant does a little more additional help. She goes to a storage unit in Rexburg, Idaho, and rents unit C52. The next day, on October 2nd, when this shooting is happening down in Arizona, or after the shooting actually, she brings her soon-to-be husband, Chad Daybell, with her. And you will see video of this as she and Chad Daybell put the rear tire and the rear bench seat of that Jeep into
Holy
the storage
crap,
unit.
bro. That was one of the first videos I ever saw of them together, was them in the storage unit.
Using the storage unit for that Jeep tire and that bench seat so that her co-conspirator, Alex, could lie in wait in the back of the Jeep, waiting for Brandon to return home that morning. This is Again, evidence of that conspiracy and of the premeditation to kill Brandon. So October 2nd, the morning of this shooting, you will see that Alex Cox was Googling that address, 3875 East Phelps Road. His burner phone from Idaho Falls, Idaho, is in Gilbert, Arizona. He's using his Gmail account, and he is using cell towers around Melanie Boudreaux's residence. Now, this is important because Melanie knew that Brandon had their kids. They had 4. She knew that Brandon that morning was going to have to drop off 3 of the kids at school and that they would exchange their youngest. They would meet at a park. Brandon would text Melanie, let her know he was there. She would respond, and they would exchange their youngest child. While Brandon was leaving his house to take his kids to school, that Idaho burner phone moves to his residence.
Oh my
and
gosh.
begins waiting for him. Alex kept the Jeep running as he waited for Brandon to return. What Melanie didn't know was that Brandon was going to the gym after dropping off the kids. And so Alex had to wait longer. You'll hear that one of Brandon's neighbors noticed this Jeep. It's a neighborhood that doesn't have any real easy ingress or egress. You'll see a map of it. So there's very little through traffic. And so the neighborhood knows and recognizes most of the same cars. And you'll hear from a neighbor that as he was backing out, he saw this Jeep parked the wrong way on the road, nose to nose with another vehicle that he did recognize. He saw the dark tinting. He saw it was running, and he thought it just stood out as unusual in his neighborhood. It made him actually.
She really
look
is
into his
incredible
rearview
at her
mirror
job.
to note it had a Texas license plate. This was about 30.
Colby was talking about the state prosecutor, Trina Kay, who's right here. And she has done an excellent job. An excellent job.
30+ minutes before Brandon arrived home. When Brandon got to the house that day, Alex was ready with the rifle. And we know that he was able to just lift up that back window because the tire wasn't on it.
Right.
Alex fired one shot.
F the storm.
Luckily, he did not hit Brandon.
Yes.
You will see that Brandon was driving a Tesla at the time. And unlike many cars, there's no frame around the window. The window just goes into the door, into the car itself. The shot hit the frame of the vehicle, but right where the window goes up into it. And you'll see that there is damage to the window as well as the bullet hole into the frame of the vehicle itself, right above Brandon's head.
Literally.
When he was sitting in that driver's seat.
Literally right above his head.
You'll hear that when Brandon took off, the window remained in the door, that he drove away and then eventually circled back around and went into his driveway. You'll hear that for a Tesla, when you put the car in
Almost
park,
everything.
the door automatically opens and the whole window just shattered out. Brandon was on the phone with 911 soon after the shooting. You'll hear that call, him actually sounding out of breath from the fear. And he waited for the police to arrive. Alex Cox, of course, is Googling how to get out of there and get back to Rexburg, Idaho. And by October 3rd, he was back there.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
That same day on October 3rd, you will see that Alex Cox and Lori Vallow went back to the storage unit. They removed that rear tire. They removed the rear seat of the Jeep and took it with them. You will again see video of that. You'll also see that they Googled that day, news in Gilbert, shootings of Brandon, to try to find out what the police knew. How did the police figure out that this defendant and Alex Cox were involved? Well, when the police were interviewing Brandon, they asked him if he had any enemies. Who would want to do this? And Brandon told the police the only people he could think of was Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. He told them that Lori had lived in Texas and that the Jeep had a Texas license plate. And he told them about that incident on July 11th of 2019 in Chandler involving Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. And he believed this was all tied together. You'll hear that the Gilbert police reached out to the Chandler Police Department and learned about that Jeep with the Texas plates, LWD 0997, the same plate that was seen on that license plate reader on October 1st coming into Arizona. The Gilbert police learned that Lori Vallow and Alex Cox were living in Rexburg, Idaho, and they reached out to law enforcement there. You'll hear that on November 1st, police in Idaho went to 565 Pioneer Road, that apartment complex, and they saw Lori Vallow, they saw Alex Cox, and they saw Chad Daybell. They didn't see the Jeep that day. And so they went back a few days later on November 4th and saw the Jeep located near Lori Vallow's residence. Tires back on it, rear seat is back in it. You'll hear that they impounded it. And on November 18th, the Gilbert police flew to Idaho to process it. You're going to learn about GSR, or gunshot residue. You're going to learn that they process the vehicle. Basically, they're little sticky kits. GSR is microscopic. You can't see it. So you try to collect it, and then you give it to an expert to look through it. You will hear that those kits were sent to the Phoenix Police Department and reviewed, and that particles indicative of gunshot residue were located on the kits that were tested from the rear of that Jeep Wrangler, and that this is consistent with a gun being fired from the rear of the Jeep. You also hear that the Gilbert Police Department collected DNA from areas like the steering wheel, the gear shift, seatbelt buckles, and that they got a blood blot from Alexander Cox. DNA profiles were created from the steering wheel and other areas around the driver's seat. And the DNA was found to be a mixture, multiple people, but the major contributor was Alexander Cox.
She's a transcriber, so I think she's just speaking
Again,
what's
you will hear
happening.
that the police executed multiple search warrants on cell phones, cell tower usage, data from Gmail accounts, and data from iCloud accounts. You will see a map of Lori Vallow's cell phone, Alex Cox's cell phone, as well as that burner phone from that Walmart in Idaho Falls, the one that was associated to Alex Cox's Gmail account. You will hear from Nick Valance from the FBI, and he'll show you how that burner phone went from Rexburg, Idaho, down to Gilbert, Arizona, was there for the shooting, and returned back to Rexburg, and was never used again after that. You will learn that the only phone number that burner phone called or received calls from was Chad Daybell, this defendant's soon-to-be husband.
Yep, soon to be, very quickly.
The same phone, of course, that was using those cell towers right around Brandon's home at the time of the shooting. This defendant, Lori Vallow Daybell, has been charged with conspiracy to commit the first-degree murder of Brandon Boudreaux.
She thinks it's funny.
October 2nd, 2019. The evidence in this case will prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant conspired with Alex Cox and others to kill Brandon.
I agree with you,
Provided
Tammy.
the means, the Jeep, She helped get the Jeep ready, and she tried to provide an alibi for her co-conspirator. At the end of this trial, the state will ask you all to hold this defendant accountable and find her guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Thank you.
Wow, dude. That
Would the
opening
defense like to give an opening
it's
statement at this
freaking
time?
over. It's over. There's nothing she can say that refutes this. Oh gosh. Here we go.
Keep in mind that this is his mom. So he knows everything that she did wrong. He understands that. He doesn't have any problem with it. There's anger, toward her. But still, you have to understand that Colby hurts. And my heart goes out to him.
I thought you were so sick you couldn't walk. Smiling it up, huh? Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, here we are at trial. And the judicial system can be difficult to understand at times. There are laws and rules and statutes that govern how things will proceed in this trial. You yesterday got to hear the preliminary jury instruction, so you kind of got an order of how things are going to go. In order for someone to be charged with a crime, as I have been,
Your Honor, I'm going to check the argument versus an opening statement.
Yes.
I'll remind the defendant, an opening statement should be a preview of what is to be expected at trial. So,
Come on, Lori. You're supposed to be a lawyer.
that law enforcement presents evidence that they gather, and the state prosecutors are going to present that to you. Sometimes the state charges the defendant with a crime. They have charged me with a crime, a very serious crime. Sometimes they take the allegations to a grand jury to decide if the
I'm
defendant
going
should
to
be
object again, Your
charged.
Honor. Improper
That's,
argument. Asked to strike.
hold on. The jury should disregard that last comment. How the charges arrived here are not for the jury's consideration.
Come
And
on,
the
dude. You
prior
don't wait.
proceedings are not for the jury's consideration. Please proceed.
You can't even make an opening statement.
The state or the prosecution will then take the information gathered, the evidence from law enforcement, and present to you a story, a theory, their hypothesis of
A
what happened.
hypothesis. They have the evidence, you dummy.
In this case, the prosecutor was
not a
not
hypothesis.
present during this alleged crime. The Gilbert Police Department was not present during this alleged crime. So it is their job to fill in the gaps, make up a theory, and present it to you, the jury, at trial. This is their job.
They just
They are
destroyed you
not
with
witness
evidence.
to the actual events because they weren't there that day with Brandon at the house when this alleged shooting occurred.
That seems to be Lori's go-to. If somebody wasn't there, they can't possibly know what happened. But she knows, even though she wasn't there, right? That's her go-to. If somebody wasn't there, and it's been in every trial, guys. And yes, watch Kobe's reactions. He's, the state did a good job of laying out the evidence that they have against her. They really did. And they're going to prove that all in the trial, everything that they said. Nothing. I don't know why Lori is taking the stance of trying to explain to the jury how things work, because I don't know. That's the only thing she has to talk about. I don't know.
There's a bullet in his
This
door.
case is about a conspiracy. And a conspiracy is when two or more people make an agreement to commit a crime. They have to willingly and knowingly participate. Conspiracy is an ancient word that appears in the Bible on many occasions.
Oh my
Judas
gosh.
conspired against Jesus with the chief priests for
I'm going to
30 pieces of silver.
object to, unless this is being presented at trial, I'm not sure that this is appropriate opening.
I agree.
What is the legal objection?
Well, that you're arguing. The opening statement is not argument. I'm going to allow it briefly, but I may cut you off depending on where you're going with that.
Cain conspired against Abel, his brother. This case is a case of conspiracy. The charge against me is that I conspired with my brother, Alex Cox, to murder my niece's husband, Brandon Boudreaux. But you will find, as you begin to see the evidence put forth in this case, that there was not any animosity between Brandon and myself. I personally did not have any motivation to have harm come to Brandon.
Oh
In fact,
my
Brandon and I had a
gosh.
very friendly relationship all of the time that I have known him. I
Can you
first
imagine
met
being
Brandon
Brandon
when he was
hearing that?
marrying my niece, Melanie.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to, unless the defendant's
Hold on.
testifying.
Can I have the parties approach briefly?
Yes. Okay.
Can I
She just brought up
briefly?
two biblical. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm going to lose my mind here. Give me a second to go big. Okay. Let me get big on you. She just used two biblical examples of two people who committed murder. Two examples, Judas and Cain. Cain killed his brother and Judas got Jesus killed. Are you dumb? They conspired. You're using that as an example, but you actually have the receipts of what Alex did, your text, and what was going on. This is, again, we're back to square one. Did you see it with your ear? Yes. Do you see it with your... They weren't there. They weren't there.
Poor Colby. My hair goes
I met
out to
Brandon
him.
when he was marrying my niece, Melanie. Melanie and I are very close because my sister, her mother, passed away when she was just 9 years old.
Irrelevant.
So Melanie and I think of each other and love each other like a mother and daughter, even though we are aunt and niece.
Irrelevant.
So our families remained close. Melanie and Brandon's family and my family. And in each other's lives, like everyday lives. We spent holidays together and shared in everyday life. I was there for Melanie and Brandon's wedding and for the birth of all four of their children. I was also very close to all four of their children. In this case, you will hear Brandon himself tell you that someone shot a gun at his car. You will learn in this testimony that Brandon was not hurt. You will learn that he wasn't even sure what had happened. But you will hear that Brandon immediately blamed me. Which begs the question, was I an enemy to Brandon?
Is that
That
funny?
is news to me, and hopefully by the end of this trial, we will all have some answers to that question. In this case, you will learn that Brandon had called 911 and Gilbert police did respond. You will learn that Brandon speaks of a puke green Jeep. And
He
then
got
offers
shot
the
at.
officers a camo green color that he's speaking of on his phone. He says a green Jeep. Then you will hear the neighbor who says that it was a dark blue Jeep that was parked in front of the neighbor's house. You will learn that Brandon very quickly hired a private investigator to find out where I was living out of the state of Arizona so he could inform the police.
Mm.
You will see Brandon exchange email information with Detective Pillar, the case agent in this case, about my whereabouts and about the financial dealings of my niece, Melanie Boudreaux. You will learn that Brandon was not particularly satisfied with the investigation that Gilbert police was conducting, so he did his own investigation, hiring his own private investigator to follow his wife, Melanie Boudreaux. You will find out that Brandon had access to the VIN number of a Jeep and gave it to the police. You will
She's
find out
sounding
that
like a
after
prophet.
that event, he quickly changed his story from a camo green Jeep to a gray Jeep. You will then learn that Brandon continued to provide information he was personally finding out to Detective Pillar, the case agent in this case. You will learn that Detective Pillar and Brandon discussed through email how they can demonstrate Melanie's financial gain if Brandon were to have died around October 2nd, 2019. This is what a conspiracy looks like. Two people trying to set up another person for a crime. My
tried to
niece,
kill
Melanie
someone.
Boudreaux, is named by the state as a co-conspirator. However,
Yes.
she has not been charged with the
I'm
crime.
going to object.
But
to
I
that
have.
struck as well, Your Honor.
Yep.
Jury should disregard that statement. You're going to receive an instruction later that all persons that may be involved would not necessarily be charged or called as witnesses, and you'll follow those instructions later. Go ahead.
She's so bad at doing this.
I was not living in Arizona at the time this alleged incident happened on October 2nd, 2019. I was not even aware such an event had taken place. I did have a close relationship with my brother Alex, but I was not aware of his every move. Melanie also had a close relationship with Alex, but also was not aware of his location at all times. Brandon and Alex also had a good relationship until this accusation. They saw each other frequently at all of our family parties and get-togethers and would often be seen laughing and talking. Alex was a comedian who kept our family laughing. Alex passed away in December 2019 of natural causes, so he is not here to defend himself.
And I'm going to object again to that as well, since he's not party to this.
No, they're not getting away with it.
He's
All
not
right,
here.
I'm on the jury that what is said in opening statements is not evidence. It's not sworn testimony. Please proceed.
Although the state has alleged that there are several
Maybe.
co-conspirators in this case,
You would hope not.
I am the only one being charged with a crime. So you will be the judge. You will hear and see evidence presented by the state. The state has, according to the law, 100% burden to prove to you
I'm going to
that
object to misstatement
crime-
of the law in terms of 100%.
All right, again, this is a little bit bordering on argument, but the jury will receive the instructions on what is and what is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
the state has the burden to prove that a crime has been committed here and that I committed that crime. That is the way the law is written. I do not have to show any evidence or put up a defense. I do not have to testify. That is the law. The prosecutors from the state have to prove to you that I conspired, meaning made
I
an
hope so.
agreement with my brother to murder Brandon.
She looks
So
horrible.
you
You're
will
right.
decide. Right now, according to the law, I am innocent. I remain innocent until the state of Arizona and its prosecutors show enough evidence to convince you that I had anything to do with this alleged crime. And I
Dumber
want
than
you to look
dirt.
carefully and determine if this event was a crime at all. Did a shooting actually occur? Only Brandon claims that it did. Only Brandon names me and Alex. You will learn that Brandon himself did own a gun. You will learn
Yeah,
that
Brandon
knew
shot
how to
himself,
shoot
you
his gun.
dumbass.
You will
Oh
learn
my-
that Brandon and Melanie were going through a divorce. And you will learn that even though Brandon is the one who actually filed for a divorce, he was blaming me for his divorce. You will learn that the information that the Gilbert Police Department and Detective Pillar, the case agent on this case, learned about me and my brother Alex was from Brandon Boudreaux. You will learn that Brandon and Detective Pillar communicated frequently and were on a first name basis. I want you to look closely at the motivation of Brandon and the Gilbert Police Department because I'm the only one charged with the crime and I need you to decipher what really happened here because I'm the only one who's being asked to pay a consequence for this
And
crime.
again, Your Honor, I'm going to
Oh
ask
my
to
gosh.
object and strike that.
What's up, Brandon?
Sustained, the jury in their instructions received an instruction that said the jury is not to consider a penalty. That will be in the final instructions there as well. The jury's job is to determine whether or not the state has proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt or the charge beyond a reasonable doubt. Go ahead, proceed.
Yeah, you just exactly. Contradictions are out of this world.
You
Can't
will
even
hear many
walk straight.
references during this trial about the state versus Lori Daybell. Well, who is the state? The state are the prosecutors.
I object to argument and relevance.
Sustain.
Yep. She literally
And
cannot
you,
pick
the
a
jury,
lane.
are brought in to stand between the state and me.
And I'm going to object again to improper statement of the law, argument and relevance.
Sustained.
You are here to say if a crime has even been committed at all. You are here to say if I committed this very crime and if the state proved this to you beyond a reasonable doubt. If at the end of this trial you have reasonable doubt, then I remain innocent. If the state does not prove to you that I, 1, committed a crime, and 2, committed this crime, then I remain innocent.
Okay.
In this case, you will hear a lot of speculation. The definition of speculation is an idea or guess about something that is not known.
Thank you. Thesaurus. Shut up.
During this trial, the state will try to convince you that I committed this crime by using speculation, innuendo, and insinuation. And the state is hoping that this will be enough. In this trial, you will in fact witness a power struggle between the state and defendant
Your Honor,
for
I'm
what
gonna
a fact
object to
really
argument.
is.
You got the concept. She yelled out.
Because they want to convince you, the jury, that a fact is speculation, that a fact is innuendo, that a fact is insinuation, that they knew what I was thinking, what I
Wow.
was feeling, what I was planning, when they don't know it all. The jury have all the power to decide what the facts are.
So I just have to say this. I mean, I realize that I'm laughing at Cody's responses, but it's just because Lori is being so ridiculous. She really is. So how does this look to the jury, guys? Yes, I mean, I know too much about this case that, I guess I'm probably pretty biased knowing what she did. But if a jury didn't know who Lori Vallow Daybell was, how does this look to them, do you think? I mean, oh, she's being idiotic, in my opinion. And Colby sees it too, right?
And what they're not. Not the state, not the judge, not law enforcement, you.
Thank you, Misty.
So I implore you to listen carefully and decide for yourselves if the state's theory really makes logical sense.
Logic.
What motivation did I have? What malice have I ever shown to anyone? What benefit would I gain?
You stupid
I'm a
ass.
person who loves all people and has no malice towards anyone.
I'm gonna crash out on this
Not
live.
even the prosecutors who wrongfully try to convict me.
Your Honor, I'm going to object again to relevance and to argument.
You are dumb as dirt.
Sustained.
I am all about spreading love and will continue to do so, even after this trial is complete, no matter the result. Thank you.
She's all about spreading love, but she took the lives of her 2 children, Tylee 17, JJ 7. She conspired to take the life of her future husband's wife, Tammy Daybell. She conspired to take the life of her own husband, Charles Vallow. And now she's on trial for conspiring to take the life of her niece's husband, Brandon Boudreaux. But she's all about love. She's all about love. People, she's serving a triple life sentence already. She's been proven guilty in a court of law, in 2 courts of law, for red rumming people. But she's all about love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And no matter what I've done, I am a good person.
Shut
All
the
right,
F
take the
up.
call to first witness.
Thank you.
I know. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And you know, the worst thing is I feel sorry. I feel so sorry for Kobe. He has been through so much, guys. So this has already taken us an hour just for the opening statements. I'm going to do a part 2 with Brandon's testimony. And I hope you guys will stick around for that. That is incredible. When you see his testimony, you'll feel his emotions. And I think you'll get a little bit clearer understanding of why Lori tried to delay the trial, saying she was sick, and how she's delaying even cross-examining him. I think she's starting to realize that it's going to make her look bad no matter how she cross-examines him. She can't dispute the evidence, right? So in thinking about Brandon, I do have, and I'm probably going to use it for the next one, but my grannyism for Brandon. And I think about Brandon sitting like this. Nobody has a right to judge you because nobody has been through what you've been through. They might have heard the stories, but they didn't feel the pain in your heart. Remember, this trial is about a man who lost his wife. He lost a marriage a wife that he adored, a marriage that he held up to such, I don't know, I'm not using the right words, but he loved his marriage. He didn't want to lose his marriage, right? He loved his family. He has custody of his children. Melanie lost custody. I do not know why Melanie has never been charged, guys. I do not know. But my heart goes out to Brandon, and that's what we're going to hear next. So stick around for part 2 of day 1 and Brandon's testimony. And thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you all so much. Please share your thoughts and your opinions below. Thank you for watching another episode of Granny's Crime Busters. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to subscribe and like and even share the content. You can follow us on any of our other social media platforms at YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We really appreciate you guys, and you can also email us at grannyscrimebusters@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.